It was really interesting joining the Virginia Capitol Press Corps right before the trial started, the summer of 2014. It was a much anticipated event, but once things began, I think really no one anticipated just how widely covered it would be and how salacious the nature of the trial would get at times with some of the dramatic testimony. For weeks, and even McDonnell himself took the stand. At one point, the case centered around federal corruption charges. So former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, along with his wife, were on trial, and eventually the jury did end up finding them guilty on a series of charges. Now, for those who maybe weren't following all the inner workings of the case, it centered around a relationship that they had with wealthy businessman, then CEO of Star Scientific, Johnny Williams. And what it came down to was when McDonnell was in office 2011, 2012, he came to have a relationship with Williams. He considered him a friend at one point, and Williams had an anti-inflammatory vitamin, a supplement, and he was seeking to have universities with Virginia have state-level research for his product line. So he, befriended the McDonnells and, asked them for help. He was wining and dining them. It tallied up to about $165,000 in gifts and loans that he gave the McDonnells at that time. And in the prosecution's eyes, he's the governor, the buck stops with him, and in their view, McDonnell, as someone who was a lawyer, as somebody who was in the military, as someone who was the governor, that he should have known better and exercised better judgment. So that was the basis of their case. But all along, McDonnell has said that he is innocent of these charges, that it was a misunderstanding, that he was tricked in a way by Johnny Williams, and that what he did was political courtesies. I think this is something we'll definitely be hearing about come Wednesday, April 27th at 10 a.m. when he does have that scheduled hearing before the U.S. Supreme Court. A lot of us are anticipating that hearing, and his lawyers have said what he did, they were routine political courtesies, and that if the federal law, the Hobbs Act, is applied in this way to public officials, it'll open the floodgates, and it will be something that criminalizes a politician from doing their job, and could even, in a way, discourage those from taking up public office. So we're certainly looking forward to going up to D.C. and seeing how those arguments unfold.
So you'll be able to be on the inside?
I am hoping so.
Okay.
So as you know, I'm normally based in Richmond and travel around the Commonwealth, for different stories on this beat, but I am not a regular member of the Supreme Court Press Corps. So I put in my request for a day pass. They are processing it. I have been tracking the website very closely to see when I could get that request in. So one way or the other, I will be up in Washington, D.C. for the oral argument, and we are hoping to secure a spot in the courtroom that day. But it is certainly a coveted assignment, and there are many reporters in the Virginia Capitol Press Corps and the national and international scene that will be seeking a spot there. The second district is certainly, that issue is coming to light there as well. And keep in mind, we're keeping in mind anyway, that at the U.S. Supreme Court level, where these cases are being heard, McDonnell and this congressional redistricting issue, that there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And with Scalia's death, there's concern that some of these cases, it could come down to a 4-4 decision. No guarantees. We're not in the courtroom all the time, and we're not behind closed doors, so we don't know how it'll come down. But there's always that possibility that a decision is delayed until a ninth justice is appointed, or there could be a rehearing, or, even with that even numbered of justices, there's still consensus one side or the other. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. But from what we have been told, a lot of Senate Republicans are not willing to move forward with putting forth a new justice until President Obama is out of office. They've said that they want to wait until the people have spoken, but for a new president. But a lot of on the other side of that, Democrats will say, well, the people already spoke by electing President Obama. So that is certainly something we're very interested in seeing how it plays out. Right, that they dislike more than Merrick Garland, because a lot of people have said, well, Merrick Garland is fairly moderate. Others have said he's liberal on certain issues like firearms rights. So it's in the eye of the beholder, but, you know, again, it'll be really interesting to
Garland
see.
might start looking really, really good.
Depending on who's
Right.
elected, exactly.
Yes, yes.
One of the issues that I had been closely following throughout the session was about the House Bill 516. Some around the Capitol called this the sexy books bill. Some called this the beloved bill. Now, it hasn't been vetoed yet, but many are anticipating one from the governor. It would put in place, ask the State Board of State Board of Education to put in policies so that if there's a reading assignment that would include sexually explicit content in any type of a book that the kids are going to read or some other material in the classroom, that the parents would get notification, that it would require that level of communication with the parents. So a lot of Republicans have said they feel this is kind of an oversight, a kill switch, if you will, for parents if they're not comfortable with a particular some reading material. A lot of schools already have something like this, but Democrats have been worried that this is, as they put it, a backdoor to censorship, that this is going to lead to banned books. So I think there was some really heated debate on that topic in the Virginia Senate floor especially. So if the governor vetoes that, you know, perhaps we could be seeing some interesting action in response from lawmakers. That is definitely another element of this, and perhaps an argument against the bill that, you know, where do you draw the line and what do you consider that content? Could it be a passing reference? Is it something that's, you know, more detailed? Are you talking one page out of a whole 300-page book? Are you talking about one paragraph? You know, or is it something that would be the overwhelming topic of a discussion?
Right.
So I think that's something that they would really need to take a look at, and would certainly put the onus on the board members if it did pass. So these discussions have been playing out in localities across Virginia. You know, we heard the debate about Alexandria in the past. In Charlottesville, there have recently been several different demonstrations of groups very impassioned, very strong feelings about these issues, either for removing the statue, for keeping it there, and then I've even heard, you know, some members of the public say, well, instead of removing this, maybe we can have more recent civil rights figures, perhaps, folks in recent decades, so that we are still remembering the past, but perhaps a little bit more of a historically up-to-date way of honoring figures from the heritage of Virginia. One of the things that we didn't talk about that was a huge deal from the session was, as the governor puts it, the historic gun deal.
Yes.
Very complex,
Yes.
so we won't delve into all the details
Right.
of that, but it was a little bit of give and take from the GOP and the Democrats, essentially expanding concealed carry reciprocity agreements from, it was on track to really back away from having those agreements with many states in the U.S., and now it will be near universal reciprocity for those concealed handgun permit holders. And in exchange, there were more stringent restrictions put in place for certain domestic abusers so that their firearm rights would be taken away. The governor and certain Democrats hailed this as a move forward. You don't see a lot of compromise on firearms
Right, right.
issues. You know, it's certainly very contentious. Certain groups, you know, felt as though it was a step backwards. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any further agreements in the works between Democrats and Republicans on this issue. It's not going away anytime soon, I don't think.
Even with that agreement, that's not the end of the story. The story
Right.
will continue.
Surely.
Thank each of you for the work that you do around Capitol Square and helping keep us informed, and especially thank you for being on This Week in Richmond.
Thank you so much for having both of us.
Thank you. We love the show.